Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. And I just noticed that today is the first day of May, which makes it even better. It's like, yes, I don't know why I thought April had 31 days. I'm like, what am I thinking? That's what happens when you're just a busy PhD student. The days just kind of run together sometimes. But I am really excited to do this video at the request of one of my subscribers on YouTube. I got an email from this person and I was just like, yay, I love it when you guys reach out to me to express your interest in me talking about a variety of topics. Like, I'm pretty much open, okay? And I encourage you guys to reach out to me, to email me. Email is the best form of contact, not sending me an inbox message on social media, but sending me a direct email message. I tend to take those messages a bit more seriously. So I was really excited. I'm still excited, you guys, to get really into this video topic. And I was excited to get the email from this person. So I'm going to open up my email. I'm like, yes, it's a topic that I want to talk about. Like, I like it just as much as you guys like it. You guys like it, I love it. And I like that he was very detailed in his email here. So, should I read the email first? Okay, so as you guys see, the title says that we're going to be talking about race play and interracial dominant submissive relationships. Now, granted, I didn't even know race play was a term. I've heard of rape play. I don't know if we can say that out loud on YouTube, because YouTube is just so sensitive. They want to make it a family-friendly environment, and I get it. But yeah, I didn't know that it was a thing. I didn't know that race play was a term in and of itself. I know the act of, I get what he was saying, as he described the actions. I'm going to read you guys this email first, and I will pick it apart. Y'all know how I like to do. So we're going to spend a good amount of time here with this email. He sent it. Wow, he sent it 9 hours ago at 12:47 last night. So he says, just saw your YouTube channel and thought it was great. And by the way, toast, you guys, I'm having some of my red South African wine here. I love this wine. It's called Jam Jar. Urge you guys to get some. I know there's a so-called unwritten rule that, oh, you can't drink before 5 p.m. Says who? Listen, this is wine. I'm a wine connoisseur. And I have wine with my dinner sometimes. And sometimes I have it with my breakfast, especially on the weekends, because it's Saturday. It's just why not? All right, so he says, just saw your YouTube channel and thought it was great. I love the videos that you have made on cuckolding and interracial relationships. I got into this lifestyle about 3 years ago with my wife. I think this lifestyle needs to be less taboo and more open. My wife and I were going through a rough part in our marriage. Now, sometimes, like I've said before, I think that you guys just be fabricating stories, because some of the stories just sound too good to be true. Not to say that they can't true, because sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. I get it. As a writer, I get it, right? But sometimes I'm just wondering, how true is this? But let's just go with it, right? A friend of hers brought it up to her once, and our counselor mentioned it. I like the way he builds the suspense, because I'm like, okay, brought what up? What? He's like, this lifestyle. What lifestyle? But we're going to get into it. He says, we were curious, so we did some research, and one thing turned into another, and we don't regret it. I think it is so important that communication between both partners in this lifestyle. I think it's so important that communication. Okay, I think communication is so important. I'm trying to edit as I'm reading, because there's some typos here. Essentially, he's saying that he thinks communication is important between both partners in this lifestyle. Yes. I'm glad you brought up bringing pleasure. He says pleaser, but I know he meant pleasure to the one you love. Yes, because it's reciprocated. It's about pleasing your partner, making sure that they are happy. Given they're already like coming to the relationship happy, right? Because I think sometimes there is like a misunderstanding when it comes to the word happiness. And we've had this debate before. I remember, I think it was last year, during the summer of last year, when I made a video. And it did come up about is it our responsibility to make our partner happy? But I was speaking in the context of like mental health, right? Mental health, happiness. Like, because some people just enter relationships depressed. So no, I don't think that it's your partner's job to treat you or heal you in that aspect. So you guys gotta keep in mind that I am coming from more of a psychological perspective, given my profession, my background. But in terms of like behaviorally, like little things, yes, I do think that to a certain extent, yeah, why not? I think that's what makes people compatible. So I don't think that a person should go out of their way necessarily to please their partner. I think if it brings you satisfaction to see your partner happy and to engage in certain activities with your partner, then by all means necessary, make your partner happy, because it's going to bring you satisfaction and to that end. But don't just be doing things because you're going out your way and you like bending over backwards trying to make your partner happy. Because sometimes that is just not sufficient. It's not going to make them. You can't make anyone happy. You get my drift? You can't make someone happy, right? But you can bring them pleasure and a certain degree of satisfaction. So I got to be clear here. I have some questions for you about verbalizing and humiliation. We are a part of a group we met on FetLife that meet up and have some fun now and then. It's a dom sub cuckolding type group. So I guess he saw my recent video on the top 100 fetishes according to FetLife, which I'm also a member of that social networking site. You guys got to go back and watch that video. Some members like to humiliate or be humiliated by verbalizing. Our group is mixed white and black couples. Is it okay to use derogatory language during sex, even when the person who is encouraging someone to say some is black? Now, some of his questions, I'm not even going to front, were a bit confusing because they weren't worded properly. So I'm going to come with my best interpretation of what he meant here in this email. He's talking about using derogatory language during sex. And he asks, is it okay when you are with someone who is of African descent or black, so to speak? And as you guys know, or may not know, that I am a 5th year PhD student in clinical psychology. The meat of my research and clinical work is centered on race politics. So this is what I do, you guys. I feel very passionate about this. Like, this is easy for me. I like discussing topics related to race. I do it effortlessly. And my research is on Black identity, acculturation, and implicit racial bias in preschool children. All right. So let's continue. Our group, okay. It kind of bothered me, but there are certain words or phrases some want others to say during sex. It bothers you, assuming you are a Caucasian. Assuming you are a Caucasian, it bothered you. Or did it bother you as an African American? Let's keep going. One of the guys in the group who is black, who usually, I'm assuming he's a Caucasian, right? one of the guys in the group who is black, who usually always is a dom, wants females to call him the N-word. He gotta be black. I mean, he gotta be white or Caucasian, because we know that there is some stigma surrounding white people using the N-word. And like, we can say it, right? So if he was black, he would have just said nigga. You know what I'm saying? Because we have the license to say it. But people who are not black just don't have the license to say that. You got to be very careful. And I think this is a good point to interject and experience a couple experiences that I had over the past, I would say, 7 days, within a 7-day period. Now, I do live out in Upper East Side, Manhattan, which is predominantly Caucasian. It has a sprinkle of black people and Asians and Latinos, but it is predominantly white. People of higher socioeconomic status live in this neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. I love it. I haven't had any significant major problems living here in this neighborhood, and I've been living here since October of last year. I felt like I chose this neighborhood to a certain extent, but I feel like it chose me. Like I kind of just stumbled upon this neighborhood after moving back, really relocating back to New York City from Los Angeles last year during the peak of the freaking pandemic. And by the way, you guys, it feels great outside. It is brisk. And it feels great. It feels like very fresh outside. It is a bit chilly than, I guess, what I expected, but I love it. And so, yeah, I love this neighborhood, but I have to mention, I was a bit taken aback by 2 experiences that I encountered in this neighborhood, in Upper East Side area. And I was like, whoa. Is it because people are like feeling themselves because like we're in spring? Like, what is going on here, right? So the first one happened more so like near 7 days ago. I was headed to the park, to Central Park, and I did go live, I think, when I got to the park. So this is the same day. The video that I made when I was at Central Park and walking through Central Park. But leading up to that, right, I'm walking from the east side towards the west, towards the park. And a lot of sidewalks in my neighborhood are very wide. They're wide. I like the sidewalks here. Meaning that there's enough space for people to fit. People to maintain 6 feet social distancing for you guys who are social distancing freaks, right? I don't really care about that, but it's whatever. I kind of like it though, now that we've been practicing social distancing. It's like, okay, let's do social distancing, right? So, and I did mention this in my video when I was at the park, but I'm walking down the sidewalk and I hear a voice, and I was nearing the entrance of the park. And I hear a freaking voice, a loud voice, projected into my ear. And this voice said, "Get off your phone!" Yo. I looked up, right? Because I did, at that moment, a few seconds before the voice came out, I did pick up my phone out of my pocket. And I'm looking at my phone. I think I wanted to check the weather. I was doing something, checking something on my phone, right? So, of course, when we check our phone, we slow down. But that's besides the freaking point. I'm not in anyone's way, right? And so there's this tall, white, older white man, right? Caucasian man that comes up on my left side. Because I'm looking back to hear, like, who the fuck is trying me, yelling at me like I did something to you? I don't bother nobody. And I'm looking, and he kind of like looks at me like, so I look back at him, and I'm just like, fuck you. That's what I said. Fuck you. The fuck? I'm not in your way. inside your freaking building. He just had walked, like, after he said that and he looked at me, right? We had that exchange, like, he walked into his building. But it triggered me. I got bothered because I'm like, this sidewalk is just as is mine as it is yours. We both have access to this sidewalk. So I do take major issue when white people feel like they own shit and it's just theirs and only theirs. And it doesn't happen often, I must say that. Like I said, these two incidents were kind of like isolated, you know. They have been within the past 7 days. Outside of that, I haven't had any issues. Not to say I won't have any issues, but I'm just saying, I think certain things happen for a reason. I think it goes well with this topic here, this video. So I wanted to mention that because I'm like, yo, that shit really, like, it got underneath my skin, yo. And I'm like, it was such a beautiful day, and I didn't let that mess up my day, because you guys can see I made a video. I was enjoying myself at the park, but it did bother me. It bothered me because I'm looking at the stimulus characteristics. I'm looking at, of course, he's a Caucasian man. I'm a black woman. And yes, race is very salient to my internal process. My identity is very, very salient to me. So I do think about race in my encounters. I mean, given, yes, that's the meat and butter of my freaking research. That's the bread and butter of my research, my clinical focus. So yes, and it's just like being an African-American woman living in the U.S. That's something that I think about subconsciously and consciously, frequently. And so when I have an encounter like that with a Caucasian man, yes, I'm going to take it personal. I'm going to think like, okay, it's because I'm black. Because, yes, you may be bothered when you walking down a sidewalk and let's say someone slows their pace, but you ain't got to do all of that. You ain't got to, like, overreact in that way. Get off your, that's rude, yo. Like, the way he yelled, get off your phone. Like, he didn't touch me. Like, it's not like, okay, I slowed down to a point where he tripped, you know what I'm saying, and, like, bumped into me, or, like, it caused, like, an accident or something. No. Dude had at least 3 feet. We had at least 3 feet distance between each other, right? There was space. Probably even more than that. There was space. He wasn't close up on me. And if he was, why? Because there's a big-ass sidewalk. And I've mentioned this before. I am one of those kind of black people. Because y'all think you got two different kind of black people, right? You got the kind of black people who, when they're walking down the sidewalk and there's white people, they make way. They lay out the red carpet. Because they're like, oh, white people, get up, come on. Let's get out the way. Let's make room for white people. And then there's me. Because I feel like the world is mine. And this is just something that has been inbred in me since I was a young girl. Like, this is just me. This is my personality. Like, this my sidewalk just as much. It's for the public, right? So, I don't have to, like, step down from the sidewalk to make room for white people to walk down the sidewalk. We can let's share this sidewalk. And I've been walking on a sidewalk where people are pulling out their phones and it may slow their pace because they're concentrating more on what's on their phone as they are walking. And if it disrupts my flow, okay, I'll walk around because I'm very mindful when I'm walking in public anyway. Even if I'm using my cell phone, I'm very much aware of my surroundings. I just felt like dude was being a freaking asshole. And so that's one incident I had to share. I got triggered. I'm not even gonna front. I'm just like, yeah, I snap. Sometimes I do have a mouth on me. And sometimes I will feel like, okay, a good number of times I'm able to restrain myself. Of course, right? Because I'm walking in my professional coat. You know what I'm saying? I have my professional coat on me. Right? But this is on, what is this, a Saturday? This is on a weekend. You know what I'm saying? Last week. A lot of times I take my professional coat off, baby. I'm not walking as a psychologist. I'm walking as Danielle. You know what I'm saying? Do not cross me like that. And do not yell at me like that, because you will get a response. So that was that incident. Then, was this yesterday? Yesterday. So there is like this food truck in walking distance from where I live. It's very convenient. I love it because they have great food. And I like to try different, y'all know I'm a big foodie. I like to try different places. And so I'm glad I tried them because they have some really great steak and eggs. I love it. And so I went there to order some steak and eggs, which I did get this morning. I actually just finished eating before I started this video. And I already had placed my order and I'm waiting. I'm actually more close to picking my order up, you know. So that's the reason why I'm standing where I was standing. Maybe 3 feet from the actual window of the food truck, right? And there was someone at the window placing her order. And I'm like 3 feet behind her. Let's say about in the middle of the sidewalk, because these are some pretty wide sidewalks on 2nd Avenue. And I'm like in the middle. So there is space, people who are walking down the sidewalk, there is space for people to walk in front of me, in between myself and the food truck, or a lot of space definitely behind me. But either way, there is space, right? So there is this old, I'm like, why it has to be older people? But we're going to get into that. There's this older white woman, and she wasn't that old. So don't make it seem like, oh, like these are just old people and I'm snapping on them. Nah. That man probably was like in his 60s. And this woman here probably sane. But she was pushing a cart. And I feel like age, nah, fuck all that. You got the mouth, you take responsibility for what comes out your mouth. So she walking. And she walks, you know what I'm saying, in front of me, right? Between myself and the food truck. But then she slows down. And maybe she got like 2 or 3 feet past me, right? Now she's to the right of me. And she looking at me like she looking at me. And she gonna yell, "You're blocking the sidewalk, bitch." But the bitch was kind of like barely audible. I can barely hear her say bitch, but I know I heard bitch. And I know I'm not hearing shit, right? And I swear, yo, this was so automatic. It's just like I got triggered once again. This is the second incident. Once again, I got triggered. And I said, fuck you, bitch. I just can't. I can't listen. And granted, like after it happened, I thought about it and I was just like, well, damn, yo, that shit could have escalated. But if it did, so fucking what? Because listen, she's wrong. She had enough space. It's not that she did not have space. She had space. I did not budge. She walked and she walked through with her cart. She was pushing her cart. It had like some bottles that she could have been homeless. I don't know. But she looked like she could be because the stuff she had in the cart, right? It's like, what the fuck she got in that goddamn car? But I'm not in your way. Walk. So I took it as like, no, you don't have, it's not about the space. It's not about where I'm standing on a sidewalk in that situation. Or about me walking in front of this white man and using my phone. It ain't about that. That's how I look at it. Because I'm like, she would have said that to a person who was white. In that way. You know what I'm saying? I don't even give a fuck. Don't cross me like that. Don't talk to me like that. Do not talk. You can say excuse me, but there's no need to, in that situation, like I say, it was plenty of space. Anybody knows 2nd Avenue, the sidewalks are wide, and it was nobody, like it was early in the morning, so it wasn't that many people. It wasn't. It was me just standing there waiting on my food, and I was like 1 minute away from grabbing my food. Once the girl who ordered her food stepped away from the window. But I just felt like it was overkill, yo. And yes, I got triggered and I said, fuck you, bitch. And she looking at me, I'm like, you better keep walking. You better keep walking. You know what's best for for you, though. And listen, I thought about it because I'm like, yo, if that shit would have escalated and she would have came back, that would have been so ugly. And I'm wondering whose side they would have took. If shit would have went down, if she would have came up in my bubble. Because I feel like, listen, I'm from Florida. There's stand your ground law. Like, you come up in my space, like, I feel threatened. So I can punch you in your shit. I can knock you the hell out. And this is just me. This is how I feel, irrespective of anything. This is just me. Like, I don't bother anybody. So do not cross over and don't. I'm not in the mood. Because I feel like this is the reason why we down there stand our ground. Because if not, people will fuck your ass up. You will become a victim. You will become a target. So you have to stand your ground. And I think that guess kind of goes across the board anywhere you go, right? You have to stand your ground. Because people will look at you as a pushover and you will become victimized. Okay? That's just a reality. But going back to the topic, it's just like I had to mention those because they're very relevant. And I admit, yes, like, no, I have zero tolerance. Do not cross me like that, you know, especially if you're a white person. Because, yes, I will get triggered. I don't know you. So the only thing I can think is that, okay, you could be my enemy. You don't like black people. You are targeting me, but I think it goes deeper than that, what's on the surface, right? Because I'm a black woman, that was a white woman, and I was a white man in those situations. We don't know each other. So when you think about the interaction of what happened, yeah, it could easily be about race. And yes, it takes us back. We get triggered. I admit, we get triggered, yo. You know? And it does stem back to slavery. Don't do that. Just don't do it. And it's because I don't know you. It's different. If I know you, right? It's like, it's different. We don't know each other. I have relationships with white people. My supervisor, I don't know if she's identified as white. She may be a different other ethnic group, but still, her skin is white, so to speak, right? And my dissertation chair, she is definitely white with blue eyes. And she is my chair of my dissertation, which is on a very sensitive topic, race. And we've discussed these issues. And it ain't always been easy. But we have a relationship. So the way I respond when situations come up, difficult conversations may come up, right, in our meeting, the way I respond is different because we've established rapport with each other. My supervisor, where I work at the clinical site, you know, she's able to provide me correction. She's able to guide me. And I respond very well to that because we have a relationship, right? And I know that she has my best interests because we built that foundation. Before I even started working there, like, we talked, you know, I let her know that I moved back to New York from LA. She provided assistance, support, encouragement with me moving into my apartment, you know, just encouraging me, and said that she's here to help me with anything that I may need. So it's like that foundation had been set. Likewise, like with my dissertation chair, like she checks in on me, just making sure that I'm good. You can tell when a person cares about your best interest, right? Asks how you doing, how you feeling, what's going on, like, so that's important. That foundation has to be laid first, right? That rapport, that level of understanding, of showing that you care about a person. Because yes, I am a descendant of of ancestors who carry a very dark history. And I think it's embedded in our DNA. And I think it goes both ways. It goes both ways. I'm glad that he sent me this email because it all ties in. And I'm going to show you guys how. But I think within black people, we carry a certain memory within our DNA, or memories. Well, yeah, we can get triggered and we get taken back. And they may look at us, oh, you're sensitive. Yeah, you're goddamn right. And that's for adaptive reasons. We should be sensitive because we will be damned if that shit that happened to our ancestors over 400 years ago will happen again today. And people can say, okay, we still are living in slavery. It's just psychological slavery. Okay, you have a point. But that harsh treatment they went through, the lynchings, the freaking cattle slavery, nah, bruh. Gotta be on guard, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's there. Those memories are embedded in our DNA, so it serves to protect us, you know what I'm saying, from the enemy that's out there, or potential enemy. That's just nature. You can't argue with nature. You can't debate nature. And I think on the other side, and white people, they have a DNA, a gene, something in their genes has been passed down from their ancestors who were our masters, where they feel this sense of power over us and control over us. Like that white man. I felt like when I had that encounter with that white man several days ago, I felt like, yeah, he can easily, like the way he sound, like I swear it was almost like I was pulled into an enactment. That's what it felt like. And I'm like, he could easily be a slave master. I could easily be a slave. I just felt like we're in 2021, but it just felt like an enactment of what have happened back then. It's just like, you know, he's carrying with inside him those genes from his ancestors who were masters and who had their way of treating the slaves, and I carry within me that DNA of my ancestors, you know. And yes, you know, it's trauma and all of that, but it's just like, listen, you can't fault me, you know. Can't fault me. This is many years of intergenerational shit, you know, and we still dealing with this to the present. It still lives in us, so you can't, like, don't act like it didn't happen. Don't act like it didn't happen. Just, it's important to be mindful that it happened, right? And how it plays out in the present. So I just think that those encounters are interesting. They don't happen regularly, though. For the most part, it's good. I love my neighborhood. It's good. People actually compliment me because I'm a very colorful person the way I dress and in my personality, and I'm beautiful, of course. So I usually get compliments from people of other races, and including black people too. Just people in general just compliment me on my colors and my clothing. Time goes by so fast, yo. Like, I haven't really began to touch the surface. Hold on. I haven't even begun to touch the surface, you guys. I was trying to check the time here. It is 10:30. But let's continue. So I think we have those. It's just important to lay that foundation. I had to share that. Now we're going to go into this. He says, one of the guys in the group who is black, who usually always is a dom, wants females to call him the N-word while he is having sex with them. Remember that. His partner and sometimes others who are black will demand they say certain things. One guy told me it's a negative word that we are transforming into something else. Now, what I think about that, I think that's a powerful thing for anyone who has a negative association with any kind of memory. Like, that's one of the techniques in therapy, to be able to rewrite your story, to reframe the way you see things, your perception of things, to reframe your thinking. That's a hallmark of cognitive behavioral therapy. So it serves its purpose, and I think that African Americans have done that naturally with the N-word, right? We can take something that was, used to degrade us, to demean us, to dehumanize us, the word nigger, and drop the ER and add the A and say nigga, and make it something empowering when we use that word and when we hear that word, so that it no longer has that negative effect on us when we hear it, depending on how it's said, though. Depending on how it's said. But yeah, I think to that credit, yes, I think that that's possible. And honestly, I'm not necessarily opposed to that, though. Don't call me no nigger, because we're going to have problems, okay? And don't be the white person that think that you can just have power over me and be trying me, and I don't know who the fuck are you. I don't do anything to you. I'm not in your way. So do not act like I'm in your way, because we may have problems, okay? We're going to have problems. But that's just me. And I think that's something that has been passed down to me from my mom, because if you ever got a chance to meet my mom, she is the same way. Okay. She the one and like instilled in me these attitudes, and you know, like this reality of we live in a white man's world and white people this, white people that, you know, like growing up in that kind of household. That has, like, race has always been a factor, right? A thing. He says, one guy told me it's a negative word that we are transforming into something else, like we are owning that word or something. It gives him gratification hearing someone who is white say that while he is on them. Now I'm wondering, are these relationships you're talking about, are they heterosexual? Are they homosexual? The black man receives gratification hearing a white man call him nigger, while the black man is on him, because I know we were talking about cuckolding, right? And how, so I'm trying to figure on them. Are you saying, like, I'm trying to figure out, okay, who is saying who is saying nigger, or who's saying the N-word to the black man? Is it the woman? Or is it the man? Because that creates a whole different kind of dynamic. But I think that is interesting. And I'm definitely going to share my own personal views when it comes to the race play aspect. And we can make this a part 2. So after I finish this video, you guys can feel free to leave your comments below. If you want me to come back and talk about it again, I definitely will. But I feel like the foundation has to be laid there so y'all can get a flavor, as if you don't really know who I am already. You can kind of get a flavor of my energy. And I think those 2 examples that I gave you guys, and my response to those 2 examples gave you that flavor. Do you think this is right? Even if a black person is wanting my wife to say it during sex. Okay. Now you're getting a bit more specific. So in terms of cuckold, if you invite a black bull into your marriage as a white man with your white wife, and your white wife wants to use the word, or the bull wants to hear that word come from your white wife, I am not sure what he means by own that word and take possession of it and making it a dominating word. It feels wrong to me. He said it still feels wrong to me. What are your thoughts? Maybe you can do a video on race play or something. Not sure why some people of color would get gratification from that when it's a bad word. Bad word, right? And we give words meaning. You can change that meaning, right? So that's how you take back power of words. You can take back power of experiences that you've had, because you rewrite those experiences. Is narrative therapy. You restructure those experiences to find a different meaning. That's the whole idea of existentialism. You find new meaning in things, because you can give it that meaning, that you have the power within you to give things new meaning. How can they be dominant and want to be called that? I don't know. It just seems wrong to me. That's the thing. And I kind of touched on this in one of my most recent videos about would I date a submissive man? And sometimes it's hard to really answer that, because, okay, the quick answer is no. Right? And thinking of just a man being submissive. No, I prefer a dominant man. But when you think of the construct of submission in relation to dominance, it falls on a spectrum. I don't think anyone is completely 100% dominant. Now, there are like these survey tests, I forget the name of the website, where you can go online and you can answer a whole bunch of questions. It's going to spit out this output to let you know where you fall on the spectrum of being dominant in relation to being submissive. And so it's going to give out percentages saying, oh, you're this percent dominant, you're this percent submissive. You're this percent master or slave and all these other constructs within the BDSM lifestyle. I think that's very interesting. But it also confirms what I'm saying, that there is a spectrum. I think of any behavior and how we fall on that spectrum. There's like, it's not just 100% dominant, right? So I think even within a dominant black male who is invited into a relationship, a cuckold relationship with a white man and his white wife, where the black man as a bull serves to please the white wife, I think that, yes, that dominant, he can still be dominant, but still have parts of him. And that goes back to the examples I gave earlier, that we carry within us these genetic memories that are encoded in our DNA. I think it's amazing. There's research on this, but you guys, it's real. That, yeah, sometimes black people do want to enact and play out those intergenerational genetic codings that have been passed down through the generations, right? It does something. It's like we're activated. It does something to us. It gives us a sense of relationship to another thing. It's like the idea of object relations in psychoanalytic theory, where we have within us these internalized object relations, right? Where, let's say, as a child, you grew up as a child who had a very abusive mother. So then you become the abused child. And within that relationship, there's a way that you have internalized that object relation, right? And it's an object relation, meaning that you can have that with anything or anyone, right? That dynamic can be exhibited between you as that abused child and between anyone else, as that you're seeking to kind of fulfill that role of your abused mother, right? We basically, the premise of the theory is that within object relations is that whatever relationship that has been internalized within us as a child, and it can take on many different forms, many different dynamics, but I just gave the example of the abused child in relation to the abuser as a parent. But that is just one example. And we seek those types of relationships as an adult. That's the whole premise, right? And so I do think that, yes, it sounds weird. It sounds like that's some sick shit, but it's real. This is real life, you guys. This is what happens. And I think we more than often do it on a subconscious level, that we are unaware that we are seeking kind of like a replay of this dynamic that we shared between our caregivers, ourselves and our caregivers, the people who were responsible for the first 5 years of our life, who helped shape that internal model within us, that template within us that we carry with us forever. And I think even beyond the first 5 years, and this is a discussion, this is like a debate that I brought up with my professor who taught my psychodynamic class back in LA. I'm like, yes, I get the hallmark of the theory is that much of behavior, if not all freaking behavior, human behavior, can be explained by what happens within a child's first 5 years of life. But I would say not all behavior. I think it goes beyond that, looking at intergenerational, right? The intergenerational patterns that are passed down and that are encoded within our DNA. To limit behavior, the explanation of behavior to just what happens in a child's first 5 years, I think it's very limiting. And I think it's like you're reducing like the complexity of human behavior. Like human behavior is much more complex. It's much more intricate than just being able to relegate everything back to, or explain away everything back to the first 5 years of a person's life. I think that's a significant part of it, but there's a lot of behavior that can't be explained by that theory. Just like you have people that work within medicine, right? They will try to explain all behavior based on the neurobiological components. And it's just like, yes, a good degree of behavior can be explained by biology, by neurology, but not all behavior, right? So we can pull upon different theories to grab an understanding of what's happening. I think there is epigenetics that plays a role, but just looking at the intergenerational aspect of how our genes are, how we take on the genes of our parents. We take on 23 chromosomes from our mom, 23 chromosomes from our father. Those genes, those genetic codes, those memories are passed down. And I think that's why you have dominant black bulls who get off on being called nigger. Because he's still in control. He's still dominant. She couldn't call him a nigger. This white woman in this interracial cuckold relationship wouldn't be able to do it. He gives her permission to do that, right? He has the power. He can take that away. But I think that it's validating, because that's the relationship, that in that object relation. Let's say even within the present context of our society, with the black man being demeaned and still referenced, as a nigger by white people, right? Still subjugated, still experiencing racial oppression. Like that, I think, just can be reaffirming. I know it sounds backwards, you guys, but knowing that you have that control you have to get control over that situation, to turn it on and to turn it off, right? He gives her that power to do that. And I've talked about this before in one of my previous videos about me being a submissive woman. I'm okay with self-disclosure because I think it serves a purpose. So I talked about, yes, growing up in a household where my mom, I deemed what she did to me as abusive. My sister wouldn't. She would look at it just as many other adult black people will say that, oh, it's just discipline. And they laugh at it and joke about it. But no, that shit is abuse in my book, right? Being stripped down, being told to strip down to one's underwear, lay across the bed, and be beaten to the point that you have webs on your body with extension cord, cable cord. That is part of my upbringing growing up. And it can be for the most superfluous thing. Like, it can be just for the most insidious, stupid ass shit. Like, saying, we used to joke around when I was younger, and we would say like 7:30, and I'm from the South, so we would just like have a play on words and say 7:30. My mom like, what? 7:30. And she's like, no, it's 7:30, say it right. So she was very strict in like how she raised us, and something like that could easily lead to an ass whooping, right? It was just like, do what I say or else kind of thing. And so having that template of that type of relationship with my mother growing up, where she is the controlling mom and I'm the submissive child, I've had that template follow me throughout my life. And so inadvertently, I do seek out relationships with men who are controlling, who are, I won't say abusive, because I understand, I can differentiate between abuse and just dominance. And so, no, I'm not turned on necessarily by abuse unless I give that person permission, unless it's like consensual, right, where I'm getting disciplined spankings. And that's a whole nother thing. And it doesn't make sense to some people, but it makes a lot of sense when you really think about it, right? Because that's how our brain has been wired to understand what love is, so to speak, right? That love is associated with discipline, physical spankings, abuse. That's what love is. And so you seek that model. You seek those kind of relationships, object relations with other people or things. So that's why they call it objects. It can be things, it can be people, right? But it's usually people that you seek to replace those earlier internal relationships that have been developed between you and your caretaker growing up. And so building on top of that, and as it relates to this email here, I'm going to share before I end this video, because I do have to go because business is calling me. But I will share with you guys. I don't think I've shared this before, so it's kind of like a secret. And granted, like, I'm a vlogger, but my videos, some have gone viral. But I feel like I'm still in a safe space where I can share things and it doesn't really become this controversial thing where like millions of people see it and people are just on my videos attacking me and trying to follow me, and I'm not at that point. So I feel like I can say certain things. I feel like I still have a safe space. I think sometimes there's like a value to like when your space is kind of very small and close-knit. And that's how my following is on YouTube and even on Facebook. Like, it's a manageable size. So we'll share it with you guys. This fantasy. And it's a fantasy. It's never happened. That's why it's a fantasy. Where I do have a fantasy. And I've had this fantasy for many years. I have a lot of fantasies that I've had for many years. And I just have not enacted out. But I have a fantasy that is very closely related to this race play. And I feel comfortable sharing it because, look, the topic has been brought up and we're talking about it, right? Where I see myself like with a white man. And of course, the foundation got to be set. Like, it goes without saying, right? Trust has to be there. It ain't just some random motherfucker off the street. You know what I'm saying? Trust has, the basic principles of a relationship, right, have to be there, right? Where, yes, he's dominant. He has a dominant personality characteristic. And, of course, I'm submissive. And we kind of like reenact like the whole slave thing, but not in a sense like where like I'm his slave per se, but just like the dynamic between like a slave and a slave master. I think that is, I'm not even going to say too much. I'm just going to leave it at that. I can talk more about this later. But I think it's just a dynamic, and it's just like a reenactment. You know, it's an enactment. It's something that, you know, obviously is a part of my psyche, part of my subconscious. I would say part of my DNA coding. And it's just something that would be nice to act out. I don't know if it's something that I could like, I don't know, like a 24/7 DS relationship type thing. I don't know. I don't know because, can I say this? I feel like some things I just can't say. It's difficult for me to say. I can say it. It's just difficult for me to say. But I think, yeah, that's just it's a fantasy. And I think we all have fantasies. A lot of us just don't want to talk about those fantasies for whatever reasons because, you know, there's stigma, right, attached to it, and we're afraid what people are going to say. But it's something that has crossed my mind. And so going back to some of his questions, like, is it wrong? I wouldn't know. How is it wrong for mutually consenting adults to have fun, to play these roles out? I don't think it's wrong necessarily in and of itself. No, I don't think it's wrong. I think it serves a purpose deep inside. I don't think it changes like who that black man is by that person, a white person, like saying that to him within a certain context, right? It's like a safe space and he has control over that. So I know it may sound like a contradiction to like how things are, let's say, in the real world, so to speak, right? Where black people are completely opposed to being called that by random white strangers. This is more of an intimate relationship, right? These people, I would assume they know each other. They have established, you know, an understanding and respect for each other. And that's his desire. That's a black man's desire if he wants to be called that. Now, I wouldn't play that part of a race play out being called a nigger. But in terms of like bondage and being put in chains and being like owned. Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's something about it just turns me on. And that's probably the slave within me, right? That's that object relations. That's that internal slave within me. And I'm just being transparent with you guys. And I don't say it's a bad thing, because if it's like a desire that a person has, it's a strong desire. It's just like, live it. Why repress it? I don't think that everything should be repressed. Certain things, okay, maybe they're not worth entertaining, right? It's just inappropriate. It's just illegal. It's just, no, don't do that. But certain things, it's like, it's okay. Like, how is this not harming anyone? It's not harming anyone on the outside. It's not harming you, you know. And before I end this video, I will say, I hope I answer your question, subscriber. I hope I answer your question. But before I end this video, I will say, like, there is a black woman in New York. I don't know her name, but like, she has white men that are subservient towards her, and like, they're on like all fours, and she has a whip, and like, they do what she tells them to do, and that's her way of regaining power. And some black conscious leaders may look at that scenario situation and say, oh, that's wrong, like, you should not have any dealings with the enemy. But listen, this thing is a lot more complex. It's not cut and dry like the interracial relations that we have here in our society. And I just think that is a contradiction for pro-black leaders, conscious leaders, Pan-African people. And I'm Pan-African myself. I get the whole concept. I support it wholeheartedly. But some things are just a contradiction. You know, want to create a society of black people within the dominant society that we live in, right? Here in America, that we're completely independent of all of the races. Like, it's a contradiction, because the process of doing so, like, you're depending upon white people. Like, you're using their platform. That's just one example that I go to. Like, you're using the platform that they created. It's created by a white man, right? Using Facebook, you're using Instagram to promote this message, but you're saying you want to be independent, but yet you're using their tools. Like, you're wearing the clothes. Like, to me, it doesn't make any sense. So I gotta end, because we can go on and on, and I got shit I gotta do. But I want to go on and on, but I gotta get my shit. I gotta get my clothes out of the dryer. So thank you guys for tuning in. Feel free to share your comments below. Like, I want to hear what you guys have to say. I love hearing back from you, and I like receiving email messages like the one that I just read you guys. Very thoughtful, very transparent, you know. It gives me something to talk about. So keep them coming. Share this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.